Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. In the last video I did introduce the new project car, the Oval pickup truck. So let's start stripping it down. Let's get cracking. So I have made a little bit of a start. At the end of the last video I did remove the wheels just so I can have a look underneath those arches, really see what's going on. I've also removed the rear window here, which was nothing more than a screwed in piece of acrylic. I've then removed the front windows and also the windscreen. And when it comes to removing windscreens on these old things, all I do is run a blade up through the glass here and then pull the rubber off along with the glass. But this, well, the rubber has gone solid. It's like plastic. It was the toughest stuff to cut through. So basically anything that is glass or delicate, for example the speedo, and also the rear view mirror has been removed because I really need to start cutting and grinding and welding, and any of those nasty sparks can damage glass. So in the previous video, I asked you guys to come up with a name for this project, something that I can use in future videos. So if you have any ideas on what this thing should be called, please leave it in the comments below. So before I received this car in the workshop, the owner has actually started to remove a lot of filler. And where things like the front wings and the rear wings were bolted on the car, this was actually made of filler. Quite a large scoop of filler was used to seamlessly get rid of the panel joints here. The customer doesn't want that anymore. He does want wing beading fitting, but I've got to take these wings off first, front and rear, just to see what we're dealing with. And it's pretty obvious to see what the filler was hiding here in this area where they've already removed the filler, and it must have had quite a thick chunk of filler in here. And what they've done is they've just gone straight over the rust and filled it all in, and they've managed to scrape a lot of it out, but I don't think they've managed to take the rear wings off. So I'm going to try and get these off and see what's underneath. So that's all 4 wings now removed, with only a small battle with rusted fixtures and fittings. And underneath these rear wings, well, it's not pretty. There is some deep rot here, and there's even parts of metal missing. And not only that, I have got some of the thickest filler known to man. So if you've been following the video series on the mirror or the Beetle build, you'll know that when removing old paint, I tend to slowly and surely remove it using a DA sander and even a scraper and sometimes paint stripper. But this car is a very different type of project. You can see here that somebody has already started carving out oodles of body filler to expose the rust on the rear quarters and the front quarter panels. So that's settled then. I'll be using the grinder with some flap wheels to remove the filler and old paint off all these crusty parts. And I've got to be honest, I'm not a big fan of using an angle grinder, even with a flap wheel, to remove body filler and paint work. What I do find is sometimes they take off too much material. They can actually take off metal, which means that the metal becomes thin, and that could also be a problem. But in the same breath, removing filler with a flap wheel, well, it's quick. I'll be able to strip this down in no time compared to the Beetle build, which took weeks and weeks of lovingly scraping off all that old paint and filler. So that has actually been quite a lot of work removing all the old paint, all that old filler from the bodywork using nothing more than a flap wheel on an angle grinder. As I mentioned before, it is a bit crude using a flap wheel on an angle grinder. You do end up removing material off the metal as well, but this car is an exception. It is very badly beaten and somebody had already started removing the filler and the paint using a flap wheel. And the amount of body filler on this car is insane. I mean, here is only a small portion that I've removed off the workshop floor. So now with all that old filler removed and the car partially stripped, we can really see just how bad this car is. So at the near side rear panel with the fender or wing removed, we've got areas like this here where it is absolutely rotten right the way through. And just underneath the wheel arches, a couple of other areas like this as well. And on the quarter panel, pretty much the same story. It's very rotten. And also areas here where they've had to kind of fabricate a panel to go round to the rear window. It's very beaten up. I mean, there doesn't seem to be much of an attempt to straighten this panel out before the filler went on. As for the near side front door, I haven't started stripping it off yet. You can see here that the panel gap here is very, very tight, and so is this area along the front of the door edge. So I'm going to have to do something with moving the door back ever so slightly. But the thing is, the gap at the back does look pretty good. So what I'll probably end up doing is, as I'm repairing this panel here and up here, then I can move the door back and then hopefully get the gap back here. And as it goes, this front quarter panel isn't so bad. It looks largely solid. There's a couple of areas here that I need to work on, like these holes here need to be deleted. I mean, the worst part is actually at the bottom edge, which is pretty common. This area here needs to be replaced. Underneath the bonnet area, you can see here, there's a great big rotten hole, so we need to do something with that. It'll probably end up cutting quite a large area of metal away and making some sort of repair panel for this bit. And now that the fuel tank has been removed, we can check out the frame head and this front bulkhead panel. Surprisingly enough though, the front bulkhead panel looks pretty good. There's a tiny bit of corrosion just appearing on the bottom corners here, which is pretty common, so I'm gonna have to address those. But the actual frame head itself does look pretty solid. Another thing that someone's done in the past is they've uprated this master cylinder to a twin circuit master cylinder, and you can see there you've got lines going to the front brake pipes, and this one here goes to the back, which is really great. If you lose the front brakes, the back ones will still work. If you lose the back ones, the front ones still work. So before I took the bonnet off, I did check the alignment, and at the front of the bonnet there was quite a large gap here. At some point in its life, this front panel has taken a bit of a shunt, so we will need to pull this out slightly to line it up with the bonnet. But not only that, you can see here it's starting to corrode, so I probably won't be going for a whole new front clip, but I'd probably just do a localized repair here and just pull this top edge out a bit so it lines up with the bonnet. And you can see here, this front quarter panel is very moody. It looks like it's had some kind of accident damage, quite a heavy impact along this panel, and it has been roughly beaten out into shape. In fact, it's lost a lot of its shape along this line here. But not only that, we have got rotten areas here. There's some holes that need to be deleted, and we've got rot at the bottom. At this point, I'm not entirely sure how far the customer wants to go with this. I'll probably have to run this past him. In an ideal world, you just put a new front quarter panel on it. But if he wants an area just remanufactured out of steel, then we're going to have to do that. So yet again, I haven't got round to stripping the paint off this door. The bottom of the door does feel a bit rotty. Just by squidging it, I can feel the outer panel and the inner panel moving, which means that the bottom edge will probably need to be repaired. But saying that, the door gap is actually pretty good on this one. And at this rear panel, pretty much the same story as the other side. You can see here where somebody has put a panel in, but they seem to have missed this whole rotten section here. So what I'd probably have to do, same as the other side, is just cut this area out and remanufacture this section here. But not only that, well, it's rotten here. It's totally rotten through, yet you can see blobs of filler coming through. So this section here will need to be cut out and replaced as well. And at this quarter panel, at the bottom edge of it, it is totally rotten. So yet again, this section needs to be cut out and replaced. But not only that, it's heavily dented in all the way along here. And I think what they've done is they've just beat it in so it lines up with the door, and then they've just skimmed the whole lot with a load of filler. And this area behind the door, yet again, it's totally beaten up. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to address this yet. I am adding a smaller window to the back, so what I'll probably do is fabricate a new panel here, because I've got to put semaphore indicators here, and then bring the panel round to meet the new window frame. And the roof area is pretty interesting. This had a huge amount of fiberglass filler and body filler, but when I ground it down, it doesn't actually seem that bad. Yeah, sure, there's imperfections and dents all over it, and you can see here where they've kind of cut and folded the panel round, but it didn't really need that much body filler. So while I was stripping the car down, I did have a good old look to see what I was dealing with, and I did find something which, well, it made me chuckle. So at first glance, the pan's look in pretty good shape there. Nice and solid, bar this front section here on the driver's side. You can see here it's heavily corroded. This panel needs to be replaced, but it's actually the panels that have already been replaced which made me chuckle. So at first glance, looks pretty good, but if you get closer, you'll notice that yes, those are rivets. And yeah, well, this panel has been just plopped in position. They've cut a rusted section out underneath, plopped the panels in and bonded them in, and then just drilled and riveted the floor into place. And it doesn't stop there. This side has been done also. You can see here where this panel isn't actually pushed down at all. It's been bonded into place. And yet again, they've screwed and riveted it down. It's the same with this back section here as well. And underneath, you can actually see what's happened. They've cut the old section of pan out and dropped this section of pan in, riveted it, and then kind of, well, left it. And on the passenger side, it's the same story. The old panel's been cut out, a new panel has just been dropped into place. But this one benefits from some kind of bond to hold it in position, as well as the rivets, which is nice. So although on the front of the driver's side, I would like to put a new panel, the passenger side's a slightly different thing altogether. I mean, the panels themselves are pretty good. They're quite solid. And if I could take those panels out and maybe tidy up the area and re-weld those panels in properly, I mean, that would be great. So in the back area here, it looks quite solid. I mean, this would have been where the back seat sat on a Beetle, and this is behind the seat, something like the boot floor area. And you can see here where they've welded it all together. And to be honest, the welds are a little bit untidy, and I'm not too sure how much of this is actually going to be exposed at the end of it. So what I'll probably do is grind down the welds and just tidy these areas up. So yes, our project pickup truck is bad, but I'm going to be honest, I thought it was going to be worse than this. I thought that there wouldn't be anything underneath the filler, for example. And, you know, I did know from the beginning there'd be a whole ton of fabrication on this one, but I'm pretty happy that there's not as much as I thought. And even no panels, like the bonnet looked so ropey. Underneath, yes, it is beaten, it's covered in dents, but it's largely solid and there's not really a lot of repair work needed. And I already know at this point it's going to take quite a bit of filler to get this one straight. But areas like this here where there was a dent and somebody had actually filled over the whole area, well, I'm going to try working out the dent so it's a little bit better and therefore I'll need less filler. And after stripping all the filler off these very dented front wings, they actually look in pretty good shape. I mean, there's a little bit of rust here and there, but not a huge amount of repairs needed. And on the front wings, it's the same situation with the bonnet where there was absolutely massive dents in the panel. What somebody's done is instead of maybe pulling the dent out slightly, making it a bit more flush, they've just fillered over the whole lot, leaving the dent underneath. So I don't know a lot about this car, but I do know that it was imported from America. And judging by the way it was built and the condition, these modifications were done a very, very long time ago. And although I love American cars, I'm very limited when it comes to the knowledge of these things. It looks like somebody has grafted an old American pickup truck on the back of this bug, but I'm not entirely sure what model it came off, what year. I mean, the rear wings or rear fenders, they look very old-fashioned to me, and it is kind of in keeping with the whole age of the car. And you guys probably know more about this kind of stuff than I do, so if you have any idea what car the back of this car is, let me know in the comments. So this pickup truck really does seem to be a collection of good and bad, mainly bad, but I'm now fully committed into this project, so I've got to do something with it. And now it's all stripped back, I can really see how much work is involved, and even better, I can actually see where I need to start on the repairs. So the next stage is to actually start cutting out sections of steel, see what we've got left, and start remanufacturing some panels to make this a bit more solid again. And that's what we're going to do. In the next video, I'm hoping to start cutting out sections of rusted metal and then refabricating some panels and get them welded in. So I do hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. It's officially the first one in the series on this Volkswagen Oval pickup truck. I'm sure there's plenty more to come. And thanks for tuning in. As always, see you next time. Cheers! Just one last thing before you guys go. Please keep your name suggestions for this project pickup coming in and we'll just chuck them all in a hat, pick one at random. Here's a couple of them already. We've got Beauty, we've got Schizophrenic Bug Truck, we've got Sad Sally, Sunshine Sally, Pick Bug, Franken Beetle, Trucking VW, Paddy the Pickup, and there's more coming in as we speak. Wow, that's a lot of grease. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's nasty. God, somewhere underneath this is a front axle. That is insane. Oh, there it is.